Hey everybody, so if you are trying to figure out whether or not you want to be a nonprofit or a for-profit and you just don't know how to make that decision, we're going to talk about that today. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, this is Tiffany here with Boss on a Budget. So today we're going to talk about how to make a decision about whether or not you want to be a for-profit or a nonprofit. Now, this is a tough decision that people have to make often in the beginning. Let me just give you one big caveat, okay? I am not a lawyer and I'm not an accountant. So a lot of the decisions that you make will depend on your individual tax decision and some of the plans you have for yourself. So if you are really confused, I advise you to talk to a professional. But in this video, I just want to talk about my own experiences and what I've seen are the major differences between for-profits and nonprofits and some things you should be thinking about as you're trying to figure out how to start your organization. So one thing I'll say is that just because you want to have like a charitable activity, it doesn't mean that you have to have a nonprofit. That's how those organizations are designated. They are meant for charitable activities, but that doesn't mean that as a for-profit, you can't do some kind of good in your work. There are plenty of organizations who commit to providing community service or making public service a huge part of their work. Look at Tom's when they produce or when they sell one pair of shoes is donated to a child in need. So there are a bunch of different models and a bunch of different ways to do charitable work. So don't just assume that it has to be done through a nonprofit. But there are three main ways you should be thinking about, or three main things you should think about when you're trying to make the difference or figure out the difference between the two. So the first big thing I'll tell you to keep in mind is around the mission and the purpose. Okay, so the purpose of for-profit businesses is to what? Make money, right? So everything that motivates you, everything that guides you is around how can we make more money. There may be other considerations like helping out your employees, being a good place to work, doing charitable good, like I just talked about. But the bottom line is what drives the organization is the ability to make more profit. For a nonprofit, that's not necessarily the main driver behind the work that you do. Making profit is important because how else are you going to survive? But the main purpose is to drive your mission. And your mission is not going to be about making money because that's not a charitable activity. So whatever your mission is, that drives your decision making. That helps you figure out what your goals are. Everything that you do strategically is centered around that mission. And sometimes you sacrifice money for mission. And nonprofits do that. Most businesses will not have that dilemma. Some will. But the main motivation for a nonprofit organization is, does it align with our mission? Is this the direction that we should go? So just think about that. The main motivator for profits is money, and the main motivator for nonprofits is a charitable activity revolved around your mission. The second thing I think you should be thinking about is ownership. And this is a huge one that people miss all the time. So just keep this in mind, okay? So as a for-profit, there are a bunch of different ways you can structure your business to figure out who the shareholders are and who the owners are of the business. Like I have an LLC. I'm the only person who owns the LLC, so profits come to me. But businesses can be formed in many different ways. As a nonprofit, there's not a single owner. You have a board of directors who at that time for their current term is setting the strategic direction of the organization. Yes, they're legally responsible for the organization to make sure the organization is on the up and up, but they don't have an ownership stake in it. So that means if the nonprofit has a good year, the board can come in and say, okay, well, let's get a share of those profits, or let's make sure some of that profit comes to us. That's just not how nonprofits work. Most of the profit has to be driven back into making sure that the organization can do charitable good. That doesn't mean you can't invest in your organization. That doesn't mean you can't invest in your staff. But Just because you make some income, you can't just funnel that money to your board members or funnel payments to staff just because you made some extra money. That there's certain rules around that you need to be mindful of for a nonprofit. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, but there are definitely caveats and other things you should be considering around that. The third thing you should think about is how you measure success. So this is one of the easiest ways to figure out the key difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit, okay? So a for-profit, you're successful if you make a lot of money, right? So you always hear those reports, oh, this quarter, this business made all this money, they're doing good, whatever, whatever. That's how you know a business is doing well. You know that a nonprofit is doing well because its mission or its mission is being delivered, or it's meeting its outcome goals, right? So the people that you're trying to impact, the people you're trying to help are getting better. That is one of the main issues, or one of the main things you can use to measure your success. If you make money, that's good. That speaks to the health of your organization, but that's not how you define success as a nonprofit. You define success if you're able to achieve your mission that year. So I hope it's easier to think about it that way, because sometimes people just have a hard time figuring out the difference and why they would do one over the other. But those are the three things I think you should pay attention to. You should pay attention to your mission and the purpose around the organization. You should pay attention to ownership, and you should pay attention to how you measure success. So that's it for this video. If you are interested in starting a nonprofit, I have a handy dandy free nonprofit checklist. I'll put the link in the description box below. But if you like this video, please do me a favor and press the like button, and also subscribe to my channel to encourage me to make more videos that may be helpful. And as always, if you have questions for me, you can visit me at www.bossonabudget.com. And I will see you next time.